The following segment is sponsored by DJ Afrolicious. With 6 years of experience rocking weddings and private events, DJ Afrolicious knows how to turn any party into a moment to remember. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brooke. Good to see you again.
It is so good to see you. Now, I have had the privilege of being to several events that you've spun at, and you always know how to turn it into a party. But before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about your past, how you got into music, and where all that love started.
Yeah, so I've really been into music for pretty much all of my life, and I credit a lot of it to my parents. My mom was big into 80s music, my dad was a big hip-hop head. And then it was just a lot of just like listening to the radio and just kind of developing my own music taste as I grew up. And then it really wasn't until I was a teenager that I started to DJ as a hobby. Then once I moved out to Utah was when I started to do professionally. And
you've got such an eclectic blend of music. That's what was so crazy was when I learned your age and you're in your young 20s.
Yeah.
But you know the most impressive music catalog, and you've DJ'd so many different weddings. Let's talk a little bit about 2025. What were some of the trends you were seeing, and now how that's carrying into 2026?
Yeah, it was really a very successful wedding season for me too. So I added a whole bunch of new features last year, like a TV booth on the front, and that was really well with being able to show off monograms and photo slideshows, stuff like that. And that's been a really big success on my end, especially with just adding a bunch of new features in terms of lighting and setup and everything. So that's been one of the major highlights for last year in terms of my overall success.
I love that, because you really do. You really bring the party, and I think we've all had those experiences. The music sets the vibe, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and having a DJ at your wedding is so important, and having a good DJ at your wedding is even more important as somebody that had a not so great DJ. But why would you suggest people hire a DJ instead of just having a friend that's playing music off their phone?
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of people tend to think about the music for the dancing when it comes to DJ, but it's all about all the little moments in between as well. So people don't tend to think about how are we going to cover the ceremony, the sound for that, how are we going to make out the timing for everything.
You're doing a full production here.
Yeah.
And when there's awkward silences, when there's no music, you can really, the party can fall apart, and you have to bring it back with the music.
Yeah, and that's exactly where the DJ would come in to really fill in those gaps. And also as well, a lot of DJs are MCs too, so it's all about carrying through with the reception, because we have all of our events, our first dance, cake cutting, etc. And you want to make sure that you have somebody who's professional and experienced to be able to cover those moments, that way that everything can flow seamlessly.
Well, and you've got enough going on with your wedding. You don't want to think, and thinking about the music is the last thing you want to be doing. Let's talk a little bit about the music mashups and collabs you do, because you really bring your own flavor to it, and it's so special and so unique.
Yeah, it's crazy at this point. I remember last year I hit 200 doing some of the stuff on my Instagram, and I know this year I'm probably scheduled to hit 300 of them, so just cranking out a whole bunch of new stuff and just being able to listen to all sorts of new music and come up with these cool combinations that a lot of people don't really come up with is something really satisfying for me. And even just on top of just doing my regular mashups, I started another series last year, called the Afrolicious Joints, which was a joint project with other DJs,
oh, I love it.
Local artists, musicians. I know last year I did it with my man DJ D-Smooth.
Oh, it's great.
And
well, you
was awesome
always
doing
bring the party, and you want to make sure you book this man and book this man early, because you want to make sure he's there. All the information is on your screen of how you can follow him, and make sure to have him at your party, because you always make it better and higher the vibe. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.